Any issues we need to address?
Very briefly, Your Honor.
Okay.
Vote.
Yeah?
I've already had discussion.
Have neglected to say it every day, but every morning it's been the same crew, and it is here again today. Mr. Rosenwasser, Mr. Garcia, Mr. Martin for the state defense, Mr. Escobar, Mr. Michaels, and Mr. Reeves has been present the entire time, Mr. Funderburg and Ms. Flores. So, all right, I think we've got everybody. We're ready to go. Uh-huh.
I think what I would like to do to just get it out of the way. There's several stipulations that all been signed, agreed, and the language has been agreed to. I'll just start off with that and we just try and put it in.
Okay.
And with it, may I oppose?
Yes. Okay. Okay. To right there. All right.
I really don't think you need to read that last one. No one cares, but just.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm not going to read that top. I'll just
Right.
start right there to state. I'm going to talk to him up here. Mr. Mr. Number 4, can you come up, please? I just want to reiterate that there, as you are well aware, there is to be no filming of the jurors under any circumstances, whether they're in the courthouse or not, when they're leaving for breaks, when they're leaving for the evening, no or picture taking of any sort. So if I find out that there's been a breach of that and I find out who did it, that media source will be excluded from the courtroom, from probably ever. So let's not have that happen. Thank you.
Can we have that same announcement once the jurors are in their seats, just so that everybody can feel very comfortable?
They'll be all right. I'm not gonna, I'll just tell them that I instructed them. Okay. They probably heard me anyways. Thank you. Thank you. You can be seated. Thank you, Deputy. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for returning. Were you all able to abide by my instructions during the recess? All right, very good. I'm glad to see you all. We're just about ready to get started. It did come to my attention that one of you was concerned about potentially being filmed by the media. I have instructed them once more that that will not be tolerated under any circumstances. So should any of you find yourself on the receiving end of a camera, please bring it to my attention immediately, and if possible, get some identification, because I won't tolerate that for 1 minute. So, all right, we're ready to begin. We're going to start off with some stipulations. I'm going to read you the stipulation instruction once more. When lawyers agree that certain facts are true, that is called a stipulation of fact. You must accept stipulated facts as having been proven. However, the significance of these facts, as with all facts, is for you to decide. In this case, the stipulated facts that you must accept as true are as follows. Let's see. On January 13th, 2014, between the hours of 1 p.m. and 1:30 p.m., there were no communications of any kind made or sent by Chad Oulson from his iPhone 5, recovered from the Theater 10 Cobb Theater at the Grove in Wesley Chapel. Between 1 p.m. and 1:30 p.m. on January 13th, 2014, Chad Oulson, 1, downloaded images and other content associated with the viewing of Facebook content and or content linked to Facebook, including but not limited to profootballmock.com. 2, received 1 missed call at 1:23:54 from Tony Reeves. And 3, said 1 missed phone call went to voicemail at 1:24:18. Aside from these 3 described events from 1 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. on January 13th, 2014, there were no other communications of any kind received by Chad Oulson on his iPhone 5 recovered from the theater. All right, and here's another one. State and defense stipulate that Jennifer Clark of the FDLE, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, would testify to the following. On March 19, 2014, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement Tampa Lab received from Pasco Sheriff's Office Agency Exhibit AP-01, a Kel-Tec 380 auto caliber semi-automatic pistol, model P38T, serial number JV135, submitted under agency offense number 14-1529, type of offense, death investigation occurring on January 13, 2014, the victim, Chad W. Oulson, and the subject, Curtis J. Reeves. Also submitted was agency exhibit number AP-03, one detachable box magazine, capacity 6, 16-ASK, one fired 380 auto caliber cartridge case, and AP-04, four unfired 380 auto caliber cartridges. The Kel-Tec pistol and the magazine were logged in at the Florida Department of Law Enforcement Tampa Lab under FDLE number, it's a long number, as submission number 1. The Kel-Tec pistol using the submitted magazine was examined and test fired. The results of the examination and test firing are documented in the laboratory report dated June 20, 2014. The result of the examination and test firing is as follows. The exhibit number 16-ASK cartridge case was fired in the exhibit number AP-01 pistol. The exhibit AP-01 pistol was found to function properly when testified with laboratory stock ammunition and the exhibit AP-03 magazine. The double-action trigger pull measured approximately 6 1/2 to 6 3/4 pounds. The exhibit AP-04 cartridges are suitable for use with the AP-1 pistol. The examination and test firing of exhibit AP-1, the Kel-Tec 380 pistol, recovered from inside Theater 10, Cobb Theater, on January 13, 2014, revealed that the Kel-Tec 380 pistol is designed to expel a projectile by the action of an explosion, therefore is a firearm as defined by Florida statutes. On September 10, 2014, the Department of Law Enforcement Tampa Lab received from Pasco Sheriff's Office Agency Exhibit AP-01, a Kel-Tec 380 caliber semi-automatic pistol, model P38T, submitted under agency offense number 14-1529, type of offense, death investigation occurring on January 13, 2014, with the victim Chad Oulson, subject Curtis Reeves. Also submitted was agency exhibit SJG-3, one extra large Fox brand black shirt with a white, red, and gray design. The shirt worn by Chad Oulson on January 13, 2014, when he was shot while inside Theater Number 10 at the Cobb Theater. Also submitted was agency exhibit AP-03, one detachable box magazine, capacity 6, and AP-04, four unfired 380 auto caliber cartridges. The Kel-Tec pistol, magazine, unfired 380 auto caliber cartridges, and Fox brand shirt were logged in at the FDLE Tampa Lab under FDLE number 201-403-02279 as submission number 2. The exhibit number SJG-3 Fox brand shirt was tested for the presence of burned and unburned gunpowder and bullet wipe. The results of the examination are documented in lab report dated October 7, 2014. The result of the examination and test firing is as follows. examination of the shirt, Exhibit SJG-3, a hole in the upper front area. The area around this hole was visually and microscopically examined and chemically processed for the presence of close-range firearm discharge residues. Residues in the form of partially burned and unburned gunpowder and bullet wipe were found. Using the Exhibit AP-01 Kel-Tec pistol, the Exhibit AP-03 magazine, laboratory ammunition, and the Exhibit AP-04 submitted ammunition, comparable residue patterns were found at distances from contact to less than 36 inches muzzle to object. And the last one, the state and defense stipulate to the following facts. The iPhone belonging to Chad Oulson, which was seized by law enforcement on January 13, 2014, from inside Theater 10, Cobb Theater, was tested by Mary Pacheco of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement Biology Unit for the presence of DNA material. The testimony of Mary Pacheco would establish the following results. 1, the DNA profile obtained from the iPhone black case demonstrated the presence of a mixture of at least 3 individuals. Due to the complexity of the mixture obtained from the iPhone black case, this data was not interpretable. 2, due to the limited nature of the DNA results obtained from the iPhone's black case screen, this data is insufficient for inclusion purposes, but may be suitable for exclusion. 3, due to the limited nature of the results obtained, Chad Oulson can be neither included nor excluded as a contributor to the iPhone's black case screen. Number 4, Curtis Reeves is excluded as a source of the limited DNA results obtained from the iPhone's black case screen. All right.
At this time, I have 2 other documents. Madam Clerk, what are my next ID letters? Next in order?
It would be MMM,
3 M's,
yes.
and the number would be?
Is it being in it?
Oh, just tell me what it is,
48.
48, 49.
Yeah.
Your Honor, at this time, the state will offer into evidence self-authenticating documents pursuant to 90.02, Paren 1, Paren B, the Florida Evidence Code. Had testimony yesterday from Corporal Bunner, the car with no visible handicap placard. State's exhibit number for ID MMM will be a certified letter from the Florida Department of Highway Safety and Vehicles indicating that no handicap placard has ever been issued to Curtis Justin Reed Jr. and State's exhibit marked for identification OONNN. Same letter from the Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicle indicating that Vivian Lee Reeves, the wife of Mr. Reeves, has never been issued a handicap placard. Due to the fact of self-authenticating, we have the attesting certifications. I would move the state in as
48 and
48 and 49 respectively.
All right.
There's no objection, Your Honor. We offered to stipulate, but we're fine
Okay.
with the...
They'll be admitted. Thank you. Okay. Who's your next witness?
It will be Mr. DeJonge.
Mr. DeJonge.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you shall give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
May Mr. Escobar and I approach
Yes.
the witness?
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Counsel? Good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. DeJonge, would you state your first and last name for the records and spell your last name? And during our discussions, please direct your answers to the jury.
My name is Craig DeJonge, last name DeJonge.
Mr. DeJonge, how are you employed?
I'm employed as a driver engineer paramedic for Pasco County Fire Rescue.
Okay, let's talk about what that is, all right?
Sure.
All right. What is that title entail?
As a driver engineer, I'm in charge of the fire truck, the apparatus, driving to calls safely, using my paramedic skills on scene if needed, driving back to the fire station safely, general maintenance of the truck.
As we sit here today, how many years have you been with the Pasco Fire and Rescue?
I just hit 13 years back in December.
All right. Back in 2014, if you're 13 now, about 8, so you're about 5 or 6 years
Just over
back
5
then?
years, yes, sir.
You told us what the title means. Specifically, what are your duties as a driver paramedic? Give us the things that you do.
On a daily basis in the morning, I check out the truck. I make sure the pump works on the fire truck. I check all the equipment, make sure everything runs, make sure all the medical equipment is in working order. Like I said, I drive to and from the calls safely, park in the right manner where I'm supposed to. When we're on scene, I act as a paramedic and assist the paramedic on the ambulance with whatever he or she needs. And then we return to the station and wait for the next call.
As far as being the driver, did you receive any type of specialized training to perform those functions?
Yes, I had to take several courses and take a state-certified fire pump test.
As far as being a paramedic, have you received any formal education to perform the duties of a paramedic on scene?
Yes, as a prerequisite to be paramedic, I had to do 1 semester of EMT school, roughly 3 to 4 months. Paramedic was roughly 1 year of schooling, and the fire academy I did it part-time, so it was roughly 8 months.
Okay. When you first began your career, did you begin as an EMT?
Yes, I received my EMT license, and then I worked for 1 year at a private ambulance company.
What is the difference between an EMT and a paramedic?
EMT is a lower level of service. If in a hierarchy, it would sort of go EMT, paramedic, nurse, doctor, sort of in a rudimentary way.
Okay. Then you became a firefighter?
Yes, I did EMT, firefighter, and then paramedic, yes, sir.
Okay. Let's talk about this case. Let me direct your attention back to January 13th, 2014. Were you employed at the Pasco Fire and Rescue?
Yes,
Were your duties the same as we've just discussed as being a driver paramedic?
correct.
And what engine were you assigned?
Engine 16 in Zephyr Hills.
All right, and where is that located?
It's on State Road 54 in between Dean Dairy Road and Eland Boulevard.
On that particular date, did you have an occasion to be dispatched to the Cobb Theater at 6333 Wesley Grove Boulevard, Wesley Chapel, Pasco County, Florida?
Yes,
Were you in engine 16,
yes,
and were you the driver?
yes.
When fire and rescue is dispatched and you get the call to respond, are you given the nature of the call as you're leaving?
Yes, we were actually not initially dispatched to the call. We were heading west on State Road 56, approaching Bruce B. Downs Boulevard. And we heard dispatch send engine 13 to a gunshot wound at the Cobb Theater, which naturally piqued our interest. So we decided to, my captain decided to head right on Bruce B. Downs, head north towards the theater. And shortly after we were heading up Bruce B. Downs, the call was upgraded by dispatch to an active shooter with multiple patients. So naturally, they put us on the call because we were getting closer to the scene, and we turned on our lights and sirens and started responding to the scene.
Now, while responding to the scene, was that call downgraded?
That's upgrading.
No. Before you got to the scene, was it downgraded from active shooter?
No, it came in as a gunshot wound and then was upgraded to an active shooter,
All right,
which means it's a higher level call.
I understand. When you were driving to the scene based on that nature of the call, what do you do with that nature of the call?
We turn on our lights and sirens, and we drive with more haste, safely and responsibly, but try to get there faster.
All right, I'm going to use some terms that I'm going to ask you to explain.
Okay.
In that situation, is it your practice to stage in an area until the area is clear?
Yes.
All right, so let's talk about that. What the term when I use, do you stage in an area? What does that mean?
Stage it's an industry term to just park your apparatus at a distance far enough from the scene where it would be safe. You wouldn't be considered to be in danger. And so you let law enforcement go into the scene, clear the scene of any danger, and then they deem it safe so that fire rescue personnel can come inside without fear of any threats.
And what does it mean until law enforcement clears the scene?
They would go in first and make sure there's no active shooting or threats, anything that would put our lives possibly in danger as fire rescue personnel.
While en route, did you receive any information that altered the plan of staging in the area?
I believe just before we got there, they said that law enforcement had deemed the area or the scene safe, so we didn't have to stage by the time we arrived there.
Okay. Now that you had that information, you're still going to the scene, correct?
Correct.
Where do you go?
We drove around the back of the theater where all the other units were.
At the rear of the theater, are there rear exit doors for each theater?
Yes, they appear to be like emergency exit exterior doors.
Is that the area that you parked in?
Yes.
Once you parked, what did you do?
We made our way by foot to the rear exterior door of the theater where the incident had occurred. We walked inside, there's a lot of commotion going on. When I had walked inside, the movie theater screen was to my right. Directly in front of me was Mr. Oulson being secured to a long spine board and to a stretcher by 3 or 4 EMTs and paramedics. They did not need any extra help. I looked up into the theater to my left, and Mrs. Oulson was being attended to by, I think, 2 paramedics, and they did not seem to need any help. So I made my way back outside to the outside of the theater and was sort of having small talk with my captain and my battalion chief.
Was that in the lobby area?
No, that would be outside the theater.
Or in the parking lot?
Parking lot, yes, sir.
All right. once you were outside, did you become aware that there was an individual that may need some a medical attention because there was something in his eye?
Yes.
When you received that information, what did you do?
I was having small talk, as I said, with my captain and battalion chief, and a law enforcement officer came over and said something to the effect of, hey, the shooter or the suspect thinks he has something in his eye. Can you go check him out? So I said, sure.
All right, what did you do?
I walked over to our engine 16 and grabbed our medical jump bag and proceeded to go over to the squad car where Mr. Reeves was being detained. There was an
So
officer.
Let me ask you some questions. When you got there, was Mr. Reeves inside the marked cruiser?
Yes,
And was there a deputy with him?
yes,
And did the deputy assist Mr. Reeves in getting out of the cruiser?
yes.
When he got out of the cruiser, did you notice whether or not Mr. Reeves was handcuffed?
He was.
If the person that you know as Mr. Reeves is in the courtroom today, would you point him out and tell me what he's wearing?
He's wearing a black suit, white short, and a kind of sort of gray and black tie.
We would stipulate that identification.
Thank you.
Once Mr. Reeves was out of the cruiser, let's just pretend this is the side of the cruiser, all right? Front tire, rear tire.
Okay.
Where was he in relation to the cruiser when he got out, front and the rear?
Towards the rear, the officer opened up the rear passenger door, assisted him out, and he was sort of standing in between the open door and the seat of the car.
Once Mr. Reeves was out, you had the background information, but did you ask Mr. Reeves what his complaint was?
I believe he said he thinks he has something in his eye.
Was Mr. Reeves wearing glasses?
Yes, he appeared to be wearing prescription glasses.
When someone indicates they might have something in their eye, what is the first procedure that you would do? We'll talk about what you did, but just typically if someone says, I think I got something in my eye, what do you do?
First, I personally removed his glasses, put them on the trunk of the car.
All right.
I observed his eye. I didn't see any redness. I didn't see any foreign objects. I didn't see any lacerations or abrasions, anything like that. The sclera, the white part of his eye, was white. I didn't see anything inconsistent with what I would find with a man of his age.
All right. After you made that visual observation, what was your next step in order to treat the complaint? Way to put it, I guess.
I took a bottle of clean, unopened bottle of sterile water, removed the shrink wrap top. The cap for the water is almost maybe like the size of a milk jug opening. So in order to not just douse his face and just drench him, I used a knife to kind of puncture a hole in the top to make it easier to flush, to irrigate his eye. And I had him turn his head to the left, and I flushed his eye kind of from the bridge of his nose downward through his left eye, and then the water fell onto the ground.
All right. And the complaint was there was something in his left eye.
Correct.
And that's the only one that you irrigated with the water,
Yes,
flushed out?
yes.
How many times did you do that?
2 or 3 times.
Again, that would be a normal treatment to make sure, or at least try to get whatever might be in there that you can't see out of the eye.
Yes, sir.
After you did that 2 or 3 times, did Mr. Reeves make any statements to you as to whether or not he thought your treatment was effective?
I had said, yeah, is that better? Did that help or something like that? And I think he made the statement of something, I think there might still be something in my eye.
You indicated that you removed his glasses after performing the treatment that you just described. What did you do with the glasses?
I then put them back on his face.
In relation to Mr. Reeves, when you're doing the flush, how close are you to Mr. Reeves?
Fairly close. I mean, it's kind of a personal procedure. You have to get kind of
May I
near
just
them.
ask you to step down a moment? Sure. Just step down a moment. Just pretend that I'm Mr. Reeves and you go do the procedure. Tell me how close you would have to get.
Probably about this close. I'd have you turn this way and kind of flush like this.
Okay. Ryan, have a seat. While in that close proximity that you just demonstrated, did you make any observations about his face that would indicate to you that he had any bruises, lacerations, redness of any type along his face?
I did not notice anything, no.
All right. And during that same time period, when you're flushing out that eye, as far as the left temple area and the right temple area, did you see anything that would indicate any type of cuts, bruises, lacerations, abrasions of any type?
No, I did not see anything that stood out.
May I have a moment, Your Honor? Thank you. I have no further questions.
Now, when you performed this procedure, as we call it, you were standing up?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so Mr. Reeves is standing up.
Yes, sir.
He's taller than you are.
I don't recall. He might have been.
Okay. So you don't really recall physically how this went?
I remember flushing his eye out. I don't remember our height differences, though.
Okay. And the reason I'm asking is you can understand, if somebody's sitting, then it's pretty easy. You walk up to them, they turn their head, and you're kind of above them, right?
Correct.
If they're taller, they might have to stoop down. Do you remember if that happened here or not?
Not specifically, no.
Now, the saline solution, you run it, I think, from the nose to the eye. Is that how it goes, from the nose down?
Yes, sir. Yeah, you don't want to flush from the affected eye the other way because you could then affect the other eye. So you want to go from the bridge of the nose through the affected eye and leave the other eye unaffected.
And so that's why it was tilted sideways?
Yes, sir.
For the left eye,
Yes, sir.
to drain out?
Yep.
If there's anything in there,
Correct.
or take out whatever is in there.
Correct.
Now, when somebody tells you they have something in their eye, you know, I've been to the doctor's office and they take your glasses off and they go like this, they put a light and all that. You didn't perform that sort of thing here.
No, sir.
You just visually looked,
Yes, sir.
is that right, to see if you could see anything?
Correct.
You didn't manipulate the eye at all?
No.
You just asked Mr. Reeves, I would imagine, to open your eyes?
Yes.
Okay. And that's so you can put the saline in?
Yeah. Sterile water.
Sterile
Yes.
water, I'm sorry. Yeah, saline would probably not be very
Yes.
comforting.
Sterile has a low salt content in it.
Okay. And so, in this case, you described taking off Mr. Reeves's glasses?
Yes, sir.
Right? And that's so you can get to the eye?
Correct.
Because if his glasses were on, you wouldn't be able to get to his eye.
Correct.
And then, when you performed this procedure, the prosecutor asked if you saw any injuries. Well, in your line of work, you're looking for something, you're not looking for redness, for instance, right?
I could see redness there. I could see lacerations, abrasions, bruising, anything of that matter.
In this case, certainly, you didn't ask Mr. Reeves to close his eyes so that you could look at his eyelids, right? That didn't happen here.
I don't believe I did, no.
All right. In this case, frankly, you had his eyes as wide open as possible.
Yes, sir.
Was Mr. Reeves wearing civilian clothes or something else? Do you remember?
I believe he's wearing civilian clothes.
Do you remember what color shirt?
I want to say blue, but I'm not positive.
Once you run the saline out, you say that Mr. Reeves tells you there still feels like something's in his eye, right?
He said something to that effect, yes.
And again, just kind of you visually looked, or you were done after you flushed it 3 times?
I flushed it. I may have looked again, I'm not sure. And then I put the glasses back on his head, and the officer assisted him back into the car, shut the door. And
All right. So in terms of actually looking at him a second time, we can agree you may have, but you may not have.
I don't remember specifically seeing anything that I didn't see the first time.
Well, do you know for sure that you looked a second time?
I'm just going off my memory.
All right. Did you write a report in this case to help you?
I did not. The first incoming engine is tasked with writing a report for the call.
All right. And did you review that report before you came here?
I did.
Okay. And is there anything specifically in there that you looked at his eye a second time?
No, sir.
I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any redirect?
No, you are, as far as the state's concerned, you can do the rest.
Does he need to be on standby?
We keep on, we have him subpoenaed as well. He's on.
Okay.
He'll be on standby.
Mr. DeJonge, you're free to go today. I'm assuming they have your phone number. Should you get called back, you will have to come back, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Be Detective Koenig.
Swear to affirm the testimony you shall give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Go ahead, Mr. Martin.
Good morning.
Good morning.
If you would, please state your first and last name for the record, spell your last name for the court reporter, and please direct all your comments to the jury box. Do you state your name, please?
I'm Detective Todd Koenig, Koenig,
Detective, how are you employed?
with the Pasco County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been with the Pasco County Sheriff's Office?
A little over 21 years.
Just so we can do the math quickly, while we're back on January 13th, 2014, that would have been, what, 16, 17 years?
Yes.
As we speak today, what unit are you in?
I'm sorry.
As we sit here today, what unit are you assigned to?
I'm in the Major Crimes 5 unit.
What is that?
We work all violent deaths and internal criminal investigations.
In 2014, what was your assignment?
I was Major Crimes unit. We worked in that unit, robberies, any crime against person, including homicides.
You are in fact a sworn law enforcement officer,
Yes, sir.
certified by the state of Florida.
Yes, sir.
Let me take you back to January 13, 2014, were you in fact employed as a sworn police officer by the Pasco Sheriff's Office?
I was.
Now, on that particular day, were you on duty or off duty?
I was on duty at the firing range for in-service training. We were at the Dade City range.
While, I'm sorry, let me start over. During your in-service training, did you become aware of an incident that was occurring at the Cop Theater at 6333 Wesley Grove Boulevard, Wesley Chapel, Pasco County, Florida?
Yes, sir.
How did you become aware of that incident?
I believe I received a text message or a call from my acting sergeant for the day.
Did you have a conversation that ultimately related to you being requested to respond to that area?
Yes, sir.
Did you in fact respond to the Cop Theater?
I did.
And approximately what time did you arrive?
13:40, 1:40 p.m.
Okay. Now, since you're involved with that particular case, is it the practice of the Pasco County Sheriff's Office to assign a unique case number or control number to that incident?
Yes, sir.
In this particular case, was it 14-001529?
Yes, sir.
are all reports related to this particular incident referred back to that number,
Yes, sir.
including all evidences collected?
Yes.
If you need to refer to your report to provide accurate information, as jury, just ask, and I'll ask the court for you if that's permissible. Okay?
Okay,
So
thank
if you need to refer to it, just ask.
Okay.
All right. Once you arrived at the scene, did you meet up with Detective Proctor?
I did.
At the point that you had that first contact with Detective Proctor, did you know his assignment?
I was aware that he was going to be the lead detective on the case.
Was there a request made by Detective Proctor for you to assist him?
Yes.
And how did you assist Detective Proctor?
He asked me to assist him in interviewing Mr. Reeves.
Did you in fact do that?
Yes, sir.
All right. Were you present when that interview took place?
I was.
Was it, the interview take place in a building or a vehicle?
A vehicle.
Were you also in the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Where were you seated in the vehicle?
The back passenger seat
And the individual being interviewed?
was in the front passenger seat.
If the individual that was in the front passenger seat that was being interviewed by Detective Proctor is in the courtroom today, would you point him out and tell me what he's wearing?
It was
Yes.
stipulation, Your Honor.
Okay.
Was the interview recorded?
Yes, sir.
And prior to coming in the courtroom today, did you listen to that recording?
I have.
Did you recognize your voice on that recording?
Yes, sir.
What I'd like to do is talk about your observations during the interview. We're not going to go through the interview itself.
Okay.
I just want to talk about the observations you made of Mr. Reeves during the interview. In the vehicle that you were in, was there a visor in front of him in the front passenger seat?
The sun visor?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us whether or not that visor has what we, I guess, refer to as a vanity mirror?
Yes, sir.
While you were in the cruiser sitting in the back seat, was that visor up or down?
I don't know if it was down when we first got in the car, but it soon became down. I noticed it after we were in there that it was down.
All right. And when it was down, did you in fact could see the vanity mirror in the visor?
Yes, sir.
If you could, I'm going to be a little facetious,
Okay.
but this wasn't like a small Prius or something like that, right?
It was actually a Buick Enclave.
Okay, so we have a bigger SUV.
Yes.
All right. Can you give us, if you're sitting in the passenger rear and Mr. Reeves is in the passenger front, approximately what is the distance between the two of you?
2.5, 3 feet.
Right. During the course of the interview, are you able to look to your left, look to your right, or even scoot over to make observations of Mr. Reeves?
I was more leaned over most of the other interview, so I could observe that.
And during the time that you were in the vehicle during the interview, during that entire process, did you have an occasion, at least once, if not multiple times, to see Mr. Reeves' face?
Yes, sir.
Again, the same question, were you able to see the left side of his face, head, like the temple area?
Yes, sir.
How about the right side temple area, ear?
He moved around a bit, so at times I would see the right side as well.
And of course, I guess you're behind him, you can see the back of his head.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, during the interview, being in the proximity that you just described, at any time, based on your life experience, did you observe any type of injuries to Mr. Reeves' face, left side, right side, back of his head, that would give you concern that maybe he needed medical treatment?
I did not. I didn't notice any injuries at first. I then seen a red spot as he continued to rub his eye throughout the
Okay.
process.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. Let's just back up a little, just one step.
Okay,
Okay. Saw no injuries.
correct.
During the course of the interview, and of course you were watching Mr. Reeves,
Yes, sir.
did you see him touch his facial area with either his left or his right hand?
I did.
Was he wearing glasses during the interview?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and tell us your observations during the interview that you saw Mr. Reeves do as he touched his face with either his left or right hand.
Okay.
What was he doing?
He was handcuffed in the front. We moved him from being handcuffed in the back when we moved him to our vehicle, handcuffed him in the front. And as he was talking about having something in his eye, he was rubbing his eye here and his temple area.
Okay. You kind of touched your eyelid. Is that what we're talking about, the eyelid
Between
area?
here and the temple.
Okay. How many times did you make that observation?
I couldn't give an exact number. I think it was several times.
Now, I know you're sitting in the back, all right? Did there come a point in time as you made those observations and it continued to occur that you were actually able to see the left eyelid?
Yes.
Did you have an opportunity to see Mr. Reeves' face before the interview began?
Yes. I assisted him getting out of the patrol vehicle and putting him into Alan's vehicle.
So I want to compare the two times. When you saw him the first time and the second time after you see the movement in his eyes, did you notice, if at all, there was any change to his physical appearance from the time you saw him the first time to the last, to the,
I did see at the end there was a slight redness to his eye,
well,
and not at the first.
okay. Now, you said eye, so I want to make sure the record is clear. You're talking about the fleshy eyelid as opposed to the glass ovule of his eye, right?
Yes, the eyelid and the
Eyelid.
temple area.
Through your conversation with Mr. Reeves, did you become aware that a paramedic had performed the procedure of flushing out his eye?
He advised us that the fire rescue had done that.
Right. And did he also advise you he still felt there was something in it?
Yes, sir.
While in the vehicle, did Mr. Reeves make any other complaints of pain, discomfort, injuries, other than something in his eye?
He had stated his shoulder was hurting from sitting in the other patrol car.
Okay. So, a discomfort is maybe a way to describe it. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Yes, sir.
You would agree with that or disagree with
I
that?
would agree with it.
Can you tell us whether or not he ever mentioned that he had a headache or a throbbing in his head?
He didn't say a headache. I believe he said that he felt dazed at one time because he thought he got hit. But I don't think he mentioned a headache.
And again, having that information, did you make observations while sitting in the back of his face, left to right side, back of his head, that would indicate to you that some sort of blunt object, anything, caused any injury to Mr. Reeves' face, left side or right side?
No, sir.
After the interview was concluded, is it the policy and practice of the Pasco Sheriff's Office to process an individual who was involved in an incident like Mr. Reeves was to take photographs and to take his clothes?
Yes, sir.
Did you in fact assist in that particular process?
I escorted him to the a different theater room and observed forensics to process him and photograph him.
The vehicle in which the interview took place, where was that parked?
We were parked in the, I want to say it was the northwest corner of the building, outside. Pretty much outside Theater 11, I believe it was.
While outside, did you see helicopters overhead?
I did,
More than one?
yes.
From that observation, what decision was made to transport Mr. Reeves to the door of Theater 11?
Well, to protect him, everybody from seeing him, the media, I suggested to Detective Proctor that we drive closer to the theater door.
And is that what you did?
Yes, sir.
Once you were at the theater door, it's a fire door, right?
Correct.
All right.
Just an exterior door on the back.
Someone
side.
let you in?
Yes.
Okay. While inside, did you meet up with a technician with the Pasco Sheriff's Office?
I did.
Who was that?
Susan Miller.
Once you were inside, tell us where you escorted Mr. Reeves so that forensic technician Miller could begin the processing of Mr. Reeves.
We just went, it's a regular theater where they play the movie. We went into the seats and she started processing him right in the front part of the room.
While in contact with Ms. Miller, did you make her aware of your observations of Mr. Reeves as far as rubbing his eyelid?
I did.
And do you recall whether or not you made any special requests of Ms. Miller?
I did specifically ask her to take photographs of his eye because he was complaining that something was possibly in it.
Now, you were there the whole time?
Yes.
Did there come a point in time, let me ask you this, while in the theater, while you were present, did Mr. Reeves ask for any other medical attention?
Not that I'm aware of. No.
No other medical complaints or discomfort
No,
that
sir.
you are aware of?
No, sir.
While the processing was taking place, did you eventually leave and someone else come in with Mr. Reeves to be with Technician Miller while the process continued?
I believe so. I believe I left before it was completed.
Ma'am, just slow it down. I have no further questions.
Thank you.
Good morning, Detective.
Good morning.
Detective, today, you're telling this jury that you observed Mr. Reeves rubbing his eyelid. That's what you told the jury just a few seconds ago, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you did that today under oath.
I did.
But what you actually saw Mr. Reeves doing is not rubbing his eyelid, but actually rubbing the corner of his eye, correct?
Correct.
But why would you tell the jury that he rubbed his eyelid when it wasn't that at all? It was the corner here of his eye. Big difference, isn't there?
No, it's not. This is this area here between your eyelid. Your eyelid is part. You're almost touching your eyelid as we speak.
Oh, so you think he almost touched his eyelid?
You almost touched your eyelid by
Did
pointing.
Mr. Reeves touch his eyelid or did he
He
not?
touched this area here between his eyelid and his temple. Yes,
So he
sir.
didn't touch his eyelid?
Yes.
Page 53.
Excuse me.
Lines 16 through 19.
Excuse me. Document.
Deposition. I was going to go through the predicate. You remember me taking a depo of you on July the 27th of 2015?
Yes, sir.
You remember that when I took your depo, you were placed under oath
Yes, sir.
and to swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
And were you telling the truth when I was deposing you on that date?
Yes, sir.
And do you remember the following questions and answer? Question, okay, he's rubbing the corner of his eye. Answer, correct. Question, not his eyelid. Answer, correct. Now, were you telling the truth back when I took that question and answer from you?
I was.
And I would imagine that in 2015, your recollection of what happened on January the 13th of 2014 would have been much better.
Maybe I misspoke back on the depot.
You think so you think your recollection today in 2022 is better than your recollection was in 2015?
Should be the same.
It should be the same. You agree that facts are important, correct?
Correct?
And in our line of work, we can't be assuming things or speculating, correct?
Correct?
And we've got to get it right
Yes, sir.
because we have someone's life in our hands, do we not?
Yes, sir.
And the system of justice is depending upon witnesses to be truthful and accurate.
Yes, sir.
Now, when you assisted Detective Proctor that day, you were pretty much in the blind yourself. You didn't know any of the facts.
Correct.
You didn't even know that Joanna Turner had indicated...
Hearsay, improper.
Approach.
Yeah, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Now, Detective, you had not even gone into the scene yourself to see any evidence that was present, correct?
Correct.
In fact, you didn't know anything about the alleged facts and circumstances of this case before you assisted Detective Proctor, correct?
Not the details, no.
And in fact, Detective Proctor was the one that asked you to assist him.
Yes, sir.
So in other words, you were basically an earpiece for him. Is
Yes,
that
sir.
correct?
Yes.
And nothing more. Now, you certainly don't have a medical degree, correct?
Correct.
You don't have a paramedic degree, correct?
Correct.
And so you don't know how to diagnose the human body to determine whether it's been hit with a blunt object, correct?
Correct.
Now, you said you saw Mr. Reeves's glasses. Mr. Reeves, can I have your glasses? You said you saw Mr. Reeves's glasses. Did you ask him to take the glasses off so that you could examine them?
No, sir.
So you don't even know what type
Your
of
Honor, I
glasses he
object.
right? You
No,
didn't-
I object.
Approach.
Detective, you didn't take Mr. Reeves's glasses off, right?
Correct.
And you didn't do anything with the glasses to try to correlate the glasses with the redness that you had observed.
No, sir.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And you never even asked Mr. Reeves whether, in fact, his glasses, would have moved to a certain
Your
extent?
Honor, I object.
Overruled.
You never asked Mr. Reeves, hey, what kind of glasses do you have to see if, in fact, they're flexible enough for them to cause some type of redness on your eyelid?
I did not.
Now, you were seated, you say, you were seated in the back passenger seat of this vehicle, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so describe the interior of the vehicle if you can.
You had 2 bucket seats in the front, 2 bucket seats in the middle, and a bench seat in the back.
No screen, no glass, no in between the front and the back seat.
No, sir. No
But
partition.
you were seated right behind Mr. Reeves,
Correct.
because you were there to listen,
Yes, sir.
is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And so you indicated on direct examination that somehow you were looking at Mr. Reeves while you were in the back seat.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and did anybody tell you to do that?
That's common practice of what we interview in a car. That's
Okay.
the position we get into.
And just to make sure for safety reasons?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that's the reason you were in the back seat?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you indicated that when you were in the back seat, you noticed Mr. Reeves touching, I guess we've cleared that up now, right? This area right here.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
His eye, temple area, yes. Where you're
Eye
pointing.
and temple area,
Yes.
right? Where I'm pointing.
Yes, sir.
Okay, just so the jury can see. And so you said that at some point in time later on, you were able to see a red mark on his eyelid. Is that correct?
On his eye area, in that
So-
corner.
So not on his eyelid, you're saying here again?
Your eyelid connects to your temple area in this bone area. He was
So-
rubbing right in the area that could be considered both. If I'm touching here, I'm touching my temple area and my eyelid.
You mean this corner?
Yes,
Okay, and so you didn't actually see him touching his eyelid?
not like this, no.
You didn't see him doing any of that?
No, sir.
Your Honor, I'm going to ask that you be allowed to answer the question.
Yes, let him answer.
I will. You didn't see him doing anything like this with his actual eyelid?
No, sir.
Okay. And so the redness that you say, that you noticed, was in that corner area?
Yes,
And so that's why you had Ms. Miller actually photograph that?
yes, sir.
No further questions?
Redirect.
There you are.
May this witness be released, or he's on standby?
This can be released by the state, yes.
Okay,
We're going to keep him.
okay. Detective, you're free to go, but if you get called back, you have to come, okay?
Okay, thank you.
An hour and a half. Take a short break. Who's your next witness?
It'll be Susan Miller.
Okay, yeah, should be a little longer. All right, let's take a 10-minute recess. Please remember my instructions during the break, and be back to the jury pool room in 10 minutes.